This podcast is part of the C-Suite Radio Network, turning the volume up on business.
Welcome to the Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer. Join us as Deb talks with her guests, experts in their fields, as they share real-life stories and techniques to power up your business.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And I have to laugh because I say good morning, but my guest is in Australia, and so it is late evening for her. And so we are very honored that she is able to do this so late in the evening for us. I love having our international guests on, but holy schmoly, does it ever cause time zone problems. So please join me in welcoming Barbara Turley to our program today. Welcome, Barbara.
Good morning, Deb, and so nice to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, this is going to be a great time because we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, and that's virtual assistants. And, I love virtual assistants, as we'll talk about in the program, might not be for everybody, but they are someone, I should say, that so many people never even think about or think, not for me. And it really is, something that I think everyone should consider.
Absolutely. I'm in full agreement with you, but I know that there are so many reasons why people don't want to take the jump or have taken the jump and maybe failed or had bad experiences. And we can talk through all of those things.
Perfect. Well, let me tell people just a little bit about you. So Barbara Turley is an investor, entrepreneur, and founder and CEO of The Virtual Hub, a business she started by accident that exploded in the space of 12 months to become one of the leading companies that recruits, trains, and manages virtual assistants for businesses who need to free up time and energy so they can go to the next level. With a strong focus on customized training and ongoing career development, Barbara ensures that her team is trained in cutting-edge programs like HubSpot, Entreport, and so on, to best meet their clients' unique needs in digital marketing, social media, personal assistant services, and administrative support. So again, Barbara, welcome.
Thank you so much, Deb.
Well, as I mentioned, I love virtual assistants, and I'm not just saying that because my producer is a virtual assistant and she'd take us off the air. I really do think that for small business owners and entrepreneurs, especially those of us who are completely on our own, a VA is absolutely critical. But I loved it in your bio where you were talking about the fact that you started your company by accident. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I love sharing this story because, obviously all your listeners are, business owners. We're all out there trying to do our thing. And I totally didn't intend to launch this business at all. I have a very strong financial kind of investment banking background. You would think that I would come up with a big business plan and, test ideas and everything. And I sort of had all those ideas, but I'd spent 15 years in corporate. I left corporate and I was doing some consulting, business coaching. I had a whole other plan of an online platform and everything to do with the wealth space. And what I found was all the businesses that I was coaching were all small businesses, but very diverse industry. There was a swim school, a naturopath, a lawyer, so very different sorts of businesses. But they all had the same problem. I could see that they were all stuck in that kind of crevice where they weren't making enough yet to hire someone. But if they didn't hire someone, they were never really going to get out of the trenches. Right. They were going to be stuck there for years. And some of them were stuck there for 10 years. I had a VA in the Philippines myself. I just started recruiting some of her friends initially, not as a business, but just to help out the clients I was working with. Right. And before I knew it, I was getting more calls for that than I was for business coaching. And I was like, I wonder, is there a business in this? And it literally was like, I just was like, I'll have a go and see what happens. And before we knew it, we were in business and we're 5 years in now with 150 staff and full offices in the Philippines and big global client base. So yeah, it happened it wasn't quite as easy as that, but that was how it started. Yeah.
Well, as I mentioned, I have a VA, and I've had several VAs before. Some have worked out and some haven't. But it really was one of those decisions that was very difficult for me to make because I kept thinking, I can do this myself. I should
Yes.
be able to do this myself. And more importantly, oh my gosh, money is tight. So why would I want, why or how could I pay someone else to do this? So talk to us about, kind of how you get over that hump.
Yeah, so that's the first biggest hurdle. People, naturally think, I can do this myself. I'm probably better at it than anybody else.
Right.
You
Oh yeah.
do.
And I know how it needs to be done.
I know how it needs to be done. How would I even explain it? All of these issues. So to tackle that issue first, I say to people, we all go, nobody goes into business to work 15 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Right.
But unfortunately, that's what a lot of us end up doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we keep telling ourselves that if we just do a little bit more and work harder and harder, that we will stop doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that unless you actually learn to let go and delegate, you probably will never get out of that cycle.
Right.
And the first step is your mindset around, even if you're great at it, even if you feel you should be doing it, you probably shouldn't be doing it because your job as a business owner is to build the business.
Right.
It's not actually to create Canva images for social media or pick up your own phone and all these things that take up your day. Now, in terms of being able to afford it, of course, that is a really challenging area to think about, and it's quite scary. So the best way to think about this is that if you do free up your time, you've got to be very strategic about how you do this, right? So you've got to decide that what are you going to get off your list first before you even hire anyone. You've got to figure out, what am I going to stop doing? Like, what is my stop doing list? And then once I stop doing all these things, what am I going to start doing that will bring in more revenue? Now, that will bring in more revenue is key because a lot of people start doing stuff that is useless.
Right.
So you've got to be strategic that way and go, once I bring this person on, I know that I need to bring in more revenue and I need to use my time to do that. And sometimes people are scared of sales. They're scared of growth and they don't go there because that is a big mindset shift. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned because, this isn't to give you more free time. As you said, it's to give
Not
you
initially.
more business time.
Yes. Yeah. So I think, look, if you're making good money and if your business is humming, then definitely if you want to take your kids to school and you want to do more free time, 100% you can do this. But initially in the early stages, usually it's a case of, I need to free up my time so that I can actually bring in more revenue.
Right.
And then build towards getting the entrepreneurial freedom or the things that I really want to do from this business that I created.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, my VA, my producer, works 3-ish hours a week for me. She obviously is doing what I could already do because I already did it before I started working with her. Yeah. But it's the administrative tasks of the program. So she contacts the guests. She does all the follow-up with them. She coordinates my schedule, all of those various things. And as I said, I could do that. But when it freed up.
Why would you?
Right. And it's funny because, there are still times where I have to interact with a client and obviously I'm interacting with her or, a potential guest, but it's, it's freeing up my time and she does it very quickly, and gets it taken care of. And I suppose that was part of it was, for me just to stop whatever I was doing, send an email to a potential guest, all those various things. It really did free up my time, as you said, because I'm not stopping, I'm not doing that, and she does it wonderfully. We've been working together for several years now, and it was difficult initially because letting go and not wanting to say I need to see every email you send, and so a big part of this for me was developing that trust factor and knowing that Kim is going to do exactly what is needed and in a way that gets it done. Sometimes it's a little bit different than I would do it. Sometimes it's a much better way than I would do it. But she gets it done. And that I think is the big thing is but having that trust factor with somebody that they will do what it is that you think you need to be doing.
Do you want to know how to build the trust factor up much faster? I'm sure everybody wants to know how to do this.
Definitely.
Because it is very hard to hire somebody online, particularly if they're in another country, even if they're in your own country.
Right.
It is very difficult to take the jump and say to yourself, just trust,
Right.
Let go. Because as entrepreneurs, we're naturally, it's our baby. It's like asking a mother to let go of her child, right? So I'm not really a big subscriber to that so much. I'm more of a fan of building a system, building processes and systems, and building a machine that you have orchestrated and built that other people can run for you. And then you teach those people to run what it is you've created and to then evolve it.
Right.
Once they have experience doing what you've asked them to do, then of course you want to hear their voice and you empower them to say, I would love to know your opinion. And if you have a better way of doing this, I'm all ears. But for now, when you're first in, here's your process. Here's how we do it. And you got to document that. So for me, that's more control. It's a controlled way of doing it.
Yeah, and I sent her a template, when you're communicating, here's the email that you send.
Yes.
And so she did. That was, exactly what she started with. But then she discovered, okay, these are the questions I'm getting back. These are various things. And I knew, that she needed to take care of it. And I didn't need to micromanage.
Exactly.
And it's funny because we think about this and we, if we were in a corporation and we had an assistant, we wouldn't think twice about having them do some of these things. And so, but you're right, when it's our business, it's our baby, and a big part of why many of us go into business is the control factor. We want to be in charge.
Of course, yeah. So delegating challenges that core sort of in charge thing that we went into business to do. And the reason we tend to hang on so long is because we are kind of control freaks in our own thing, right? And it's okay. I will openly admit I'm one of them, But at the same time, I don't do anything. I mean, I don't do nothing in my business, but I mean, the things that I don't do any of the day-to-day operational running.
Right.
But I am very much the conductor of the orchestra.
Right.
And the people, like I'm the leader of the entire thing. And even if it's just you and one VA that only works a few hours a week, you still need to be a leader in your own business. And a lot of people miss that bit and they feel like they're giving away control when actually you're actually maintaining control and bringing someone else in. And that's a different mindset shift. Yeah.
Well, and obviously there's a variety of ways excuse me, that you can do this. And it depends on, probably what they're doing, weekly reports, weekly call-ins, weekly, whatever. So, so that you are keeping tabs on what's going on. And again, I keep saying, if we were in a corporation, we'd be doing that anyway. So why not be doing it in our own business?
Well, a lot of people in small business in particular, a lot of people haven't been in big corporations.
True.
And I think one of the things that I learned when I came out of big corporate myself was I made an assumption that everybody thought the way I did or the way I was trained to think in large corporations. And a lot of business owners I met along the way had hustled hard. They had built their thing. They had, they'd probably been arguably more successful than me because it's actually harder. But they hadn't built those skills of delegation and of team structure, org charts and reporting lines, the things that are kind of just like part of second nature for those of us that have done that.
Right.
Even how to run an effective meeting, things like what's the difference between a chat and a meeting? How to deliver effective feedback and how to not feel like you're slamming someone because they made a mistake, but you have to bring it up, So all of these things are very challenging for people who've never been in those big corporate structures before.
Right.
And I found when I started this business, a lot of what I ended up doing was the reason we recruit, train and manage, and that's the whole concept around what we do, is originally I was just recruiting. And honestly, in the first 6 months, it was an absolute failure. The business, we did loads of sales, but we were getting flooded with problems because people didn't know how to delegate. They were finding it very frustrating and they were blaming the VAs when in reality they weren't set up properly to deal with a VA. And so these days we run huge client onboarding programs where we actually teach people how to use, tools like Asana, how to make a recurring task list, how to actually develop a process and how to communicate that effectively, and then how to have oversight and reporting and all these kinds of things. And similarly on the VA side, we found that they might have some skills, but they weren't deeply trained on the tech platforms are moving so fast, and they're often not trained either on how to manage the client expectations, how to communicate effectively back, all these kinds of things. So today, the Virtual Hub is kind of built around those concepts of solving those larger problems and not just throwing a body at a problem. It's like saying, here's the person, but we also give you a sort of an ecosystem around that. And that was really I think that was really the success point for me of understanding the problem runs much deeper than finding a VA.
I love that concept because, as I mentioned, I'd had several VAs and some worked out and some didn't. And the reason they didn't work out was entirely me, and for the most part, it was things like I didn't know what the expectations were, or I knew and I didn't properly communicate them, so I didn't give them the right tools. And it's like I said, I needed to be trained, and so then what it did was I got more and more frustrated. Well, why aren't they doing this? I told them to go do, whatever, find me, 20 leads a month or whatever. But then I didn't give them enough structure, enough definition, and I certainly didn't do enough follow-up to say, okay, what have you been doing? Because then they would come back and say, we just really struggled. And so it was two-way because they didn't come back to me and say, hey, we're not understanding. We just kind of went like this several times and then went, okay, this isn't really working.
Yeah. And look, that there's a number of problems that occur. So let's say the first problem is it's the business owner, right? Who, and sadly, a lot of people never get to that point and they just continue to blame the VA and they churn through people, never really realizing that maybe they should look within. But so not being set up properly before you hire VA, major problem. Like we even turn people away on our sales calls and say, look, you're going to waste your money, right? So just go away and do this, and this first, and then come back when you're ready. The other problem is though that sometimes we get business owners that are actually very well set up and they're very nice and they're just getting railroaded by people online who are just, and they're blaming themselves. So we see that a lot as well. You can recruit badly. You can recruit someone who's a great talker.
Right.
You can recruit someone who says all the right things in the interview, says all the right things every time you have a meeting, but the work never gets done. And there's always a reason why, and I call it slippery behavior, particularly online. You don't really know what people are doing.
Right.
And then the third problem is sort of a misalignment of what you actually need. So some people hire a VA. This is a classic example. Some people will hire a VA to run their Facebook ad campaigns. And I'm like, look, you need a strategist to actually come up with the strategy. Now, VAs can implement 80% of what a strategist will come up with, but they won't come up with the strategy for you because that's a different thing, and they won't be a project manager for you. Some of them will, but you're sort of stretching the scope by saying that you want them to do all these other things. And when they don't achieve it, you blame the VA and you go, well, that's actually just a misalignment of expectation completely, or a scope creep, And these are the three main things that I see as problems. That show up on our doorstep as just problems to be solved. Yeah.
Well, and I love that you mentioned social media because I do other organizations' social media for them, and it's something that you don't just do. Like
you can't just process it up either. There has to be strategy, so you're the strategist.
You mentioned Facebook ad campaigns. Well, you might have this great strategy that, you're going to reach X people with your ad. You're going to do this, this, and this. But if the ad is not a good ad, then
it doesn't matter.
Right. Hopefully the VA might go, excuse me, I'm just not quite sure. But
I don't think they would though, because how would they know the copy wasn't great? Because they're not copywriters.
Yeah. And they aren't intricately involved in your business.
No.
And now if they've been with you for a while, that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Somebody who is really just starting out, they're not going to know the ins and outs of your business. They certainly don't know your clients, your potential clients, all of these various things. So it is, it's a teamwork type of thing. And I keep coming back to thinking about, when I hired VAs and it didn't work, great people, very organized, all these things. But I didn't give them the right information to start with.
Yeah, and you probably may not have. The other thing about process development is that sometimes we do have a little process, or it's in our head,
right?
And we document it, and we do a little video, and we send it to the VA, and it's a sort of a mini disaster, and we say, "But I gave them a process."
Right. Yeah.
And I go, but the interesting problem with processes is that when you give it to someone else, there's the test of your process. Because if it fails, there's
and
a
how
problem.
many things were still up in here?
Yeah, or how, even if every step was there, how do you think while you're doing the process, and now someone else who doesn't have your mind and your eyes and all those sorts of things, you have to kind of dig deeper before you shoot the person. But people just shoot the person straight away and blame them. Yeah, there's a lot of those challenges with and I think that's what sadly, I think people underestimate or don't realize these problems. And therefore they're getting very frustrated, because the word on the street is, get a virtual assistant and your life will be amazing, right? Yeah. I'm here to tell you, it won't be. Right. If you get a virtual assistant and you're not ready, or you're not really clear on what needs to be done, you're actually going to create one more problem for yourself. Right. And not solve any. And that's kind of where I think people are not being honest online about that. Right. Yeah.
Well, and you could even be taking your business backwards.
You might for 2 months when you get to onboard someone, you might have to go backwards for 2 months. Right. Yeah.
Well, and if things don't go well, it could really have problems. I mean, and so it's, and I think maybe, it was funny because you mentioned, that it's the in thing and a lot of people do it. And so I think a lot of people think, oh, yeah, this is easy to do because it's the in thing. Well, and maybe that was my problem when I initially started. And when I decided to hire a producer, I actually created a job description, because it's, to me, the person is an employee. Now, yes, I know they're a consultant, for all of those tax reasons, and all of those things. Yes. Clearly, it's not somebody who's working for me 40 hours a week. But, I created a job description, and then I worked with a different service when I was getting my VA, and I narrowed it down to 5, I think maybe 5. Yeah. And I did interviews like this so that I could see them. So it wasn't just, and we went through the job descriptions, and these were pretty detailed interviews, and everybody was qualified. I mean, I really liked them. But the funny thing was, the person that I work with, Kim, she was the only one who, when she followed up, and they all followed up, they'd all been very well trained to follow up and thank me and all of those things. She was the only one who said, I have some suggestions for things. And I went, ding, 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 ding.
Yes.
Because
initiative.
She clearly paid attention. Yep.
Yeah. And she knew what you needed. She understood your mindset and your needs more deeply than the others. That is actually the hardest thing to teach. But some people just have a natural ability with that.
Well, and that takes courage, to say, hey, I'd like to make some suggestions, because, my first response was, well, boy, that's pretty ballsy. But
now I deal in the Philippines, right? So I've got RVAs are all in the Philippines, and that is extraordinarily difficult to teach them.
Right.
Because culturally, it's, but when we find the great ones, I'm like, wow, they've got a voice. That's great, but they always assume, I always say to them, don't assume the client knows more than you do on this topic, because actually you've been trained very deeply, and they probably know about 10% of what you currently know on the, like, let's say it's something like, link building in SEO, or like, something kind of quite, I say you've got to like pitch to them why they should be doing this process or what you think they should be doing. That's hard though. That's hard, because it's really putting themselves out there,
It is.
They feel rude. They feel rude just saying that to a client. Right. Yeah.
or yeah, they do, or they feel like, it's too much, and obviously there are ways to do it so that it's polite,
Of course.
but yeah, it's tricky. Well, you have a business that does this, and I love that you keep mentioning that you have trained your VAs, because so many people that I talk to, and I've talked to several people recently who've said, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to be a VA. And that's great. But, there's so many other things that go through it. And so why, and it could work out perfect. We don't ever want to dissuade somebody from doing that. But tell us a little bit more about why it's so important to go through a service like yours, because of everything that goes along with that.
Yeah, look, let's be honest. Anyone can go online, go to Upwork, Freelancer, any of these things, and you can get a VA.
Right.
The way I explain it is that if you're already overwhelmed in your business, right, we get on average 500 or 600 applications per month for a job with us. After a lengthy, several week long process, let's call it 4 weeks, where it starts pretty basic, where they come into the office, sit a 5-hour exam, of which they can fail in any hour of that exam, and it's all automated, so there's no real human interaction. It's just like, hey, sorry, that's it. Right down to a 4-week intensive training program that you can be knocked out in any of those weeks because of your we will hire on average between 2% and 4% of those people. And I always say to people, look, it is excruciating even for us, and we are in the business of this.
Right.
So if you want to do it yourself, you can, and you can hit a home run like on your first go. But just recognize that there's a fair bit of work to do. And if you're willing to devote the time to that and the ongoing HR, KPI management, training, all those things, if you're willing to take on the work of that and to be realistic about it, then by all means you can do it yourself. But most of the clients that are coming to us recognize the fact that they're like, I want an offshore team. I get it. I just don't have the time to do all the stuff that you guys do. And therefore I'm willing to pay a premium to pay us to do. Yeah. And they want them in offices. They don't want them working from home and all these sorts of things. So that's essentially why you're actually taking on a whole other job. And usually people are overwhelmed anyway. So why would you?
Right.
Why would you do that to yourself?
Well, and, as you mentioned, the training is what's important. As we were talking, I was thinking, say I need to outsource my invoicing.
Yes.
And so I might find a great person to do that, who knows QuickBooks, or whatever program it is that I'm using, knows how to do all of that, but has horrible communication skills. And so, communicating, say I told this person, okay, I need you to create this invoice and then I need you to send it to the client. Well, if there's that gap in there where they're not doing that part well, and let's start, hey, invoicing, that really is important. That's where it's going to fail. And so I love the fact that you take the training and the time to make sure that person is there. Now, it could be, all I need them to do is invoicing. They're going to send it back to me and I send it off. That's a little bit different. But, I also am looking for someone, as you said, we mentioned the word a couple of times, initiative. Maybe that person is going to say, hey, what about, could we, what if, and that comes with that training to be able to know, okay, there's other steps, there's other programs. I mean, there might be somebody that says, hey, let's not, you're not best served by QuickBooks or whatever it is.
Well, as you were talking, I was thinking, how am I going to tackle this one? Because interestingly, initiative is kind of where, in the world of virtual assistants, now there are US virtual, to all the US virtual assistants that are listening, most of you guys who've been doing this forever and a day and are highly skilled at it, in my view, are not charging enough, and you're actually not a VA anymore. You're what's called an online business manager. You are like a whole other level. You're probably at the project management level, and you're still calling yourself a VA, right? So let's, just put that one out of the So the ones that are feeling like I'm saying, they're like, I show initiative, you're probably in a different camp, and maybe you should think about renaming yourself.
I'll tell that to my producer. No, she can't.
Yeah. She's Roger. But when it comes to the problem with the word virtual assistant is it has become like very broad.
Right.
And it's anyone from a heartbeat who can type to a coder who can create an app for you. And that therein lies the problem, is that people, the creep there. Really, for me anyway, virtual assistant is someone who is there to execute processes built by you. Or and probably has a project manager leading, or there's someone leading. They can definitely suggest ideas and bring their feedback on doing that process to you if you create the environment whereby they will. You've empowered them to do that. So you have to actually tell people to do that. But when it comes to saying, I don't think you should use QuickBooks, I think you should use Xero, that's a pretty risky thing to say if you're not an accountant, for example, or a bookkeeper. Now, while it may be true, but I don't know. I think a lot of virtual assistants probably wouldn't go to that level because of the risk involved, because you're actually giving business advice there.
Okay.
As opposed to a process tweak would be, you know what, I'm finding that every time I send this email, I get this question back. Can I create an FAQ page on your website? And why don't we put it in the autoresponder that this question is the most common question, right? That's kind of more what I would call initiative. Yeah. Okay. So just to I just want to, often on these podcasts, I try and bring things back into reality and go like, that's where I see virtual assistants. Now, I'm sure there'll be people online saying, no, she's wrong. I do it this way. Again, I think those people are probably in a different category.
Right.
Different category.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that comes back to what we were saying before. That's kind of managing those expectations.
Yes.
Because if that was what I was wanting, then I should say, hey, if you see something, or have suggestions, again, let's, talk maybe social media where, somebody, they say, hey, there's a different scheduling program, that I'm familiar with. Would you consider, testing that or something like that?
Yeah, they will do that. Yeah.
Right.
With those sorts of tools that are a little bit less kind of, they will do that. Yeah. Yeah. Or, and I think as well, it means if someone's working with you a little bit longer,
right.
Don't expect that in the first week or two. People kind of expect that straight away. I'm like, I've worked with people from the US. I've worked with freelancers, everything, not just Filipinos. It still takes months to onboard somebody into your business. They don't know your voice. They don't know your business, your processes. And, I've hired salespeople, writers, the whole lot. It takes months to onboard them properly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because I was talking with someone, and this was a while ago, who has a VA who responds when people ask questions about something they're selling on Amazon. And they've created a script. If they ask this, then you respond this. If they ask this, and but the tricky thing that they have found, of course, is timeliness, because holy cow, people expect a response right away. Well, we mentioned at the start of the program, it's almost the middle of the night for you because you're in Australia. Clearly if we're working with someone in the Philippines, it's a very different time zone. So again, those are those expectations that we have to manage. If it is something that absolutely has to be responded to in an extremely timely manner in your time zone, then that needs to be communicated. And maybe it is that somebody is working in the middle of the night. I mean, you never know.
Well, we run 24 hours. Our business runs 24 hours. But here's the thing. In the Philippines, you will find people that will work the night shift. This huge booming kind of night shift over there. In my view, the last thing you want is someone working a night shift in their bedroom in the province outside of Manila with everyone asleep and all this sort of. It's very hard to stay focused. Whereas in an office environment, so getting back to your question, why would somebody use maybe a service like ours? Well, if it is a US business hours thing, like we've got a great, like vibrant office environment going on all night. We've got cafes open downstairs. We've got team leaders there and help desks, and you know what I mean? So we've got quite a vibrant thing going on. And if someone is going to be working a US time zone, it's definitely better to have them in that engaging kind of place, I think, for them as well, for well-being. So yeah, but like you say, you do have to be realistic about what is it you're trying to achieve? What does the role require? Right. And then how are you going to get reporting on that?
And if say a 24-hour response window works, then that's very different.
Yes, yeah, if that's fine. Or if you run 20, like what I was thinking there is, if you need people 24 hours to be responding all the time, then you definitely need an agency, and or you need to bring in automation.
Right.
You need to bring in chatbots and things like that.
Yeah, because they could get the chat bot that says, thank you so much for your inquiry. Maybe it refers you to an FAQ page, all of those various things. And then it says, we will follow up with you during regular business hours, and then again.
Exactly. You can, and VAs can build those for you. The simple chatbots, a good VA can build you one of them, you know?
Well, and that just really brought up something that is why we should hire VAs. We're the small business owner, we're the entrepreneur, we're in our home office.
Yes. Yeah.
And as smart as we all like to think we are, we don't know everything. And so to me, that is one of the most important reasons to hire a VA, because we don't know everything. We know, oh my gosh, I should be using a chat bot. And for those of you who are wondering what a chat bot is, we've had other programs on those. But it's that little thing that pops up on, could be your website, could be Facebook, all these various things that, is an automated response. And, but I don't know how to do it. More importantly, I don't know how to do it right.
Even researching all the different, like what a classic VA job. Can you research for me the top 3 chatbot? What are they? Can you tell me what they are? And then tell me like what they do, what we could do with it.
Right.
And then if you can build one. And like that's a massive research project that you could just give to a VA. Right. And they would come back and say, wow, these things are amazing. This is what they do. Here's the top 3 in the market. I was thinking we could do this, this, and this. And actually then I was thinking, I always get this question. Maybe we could put that in there. That's what that's the VA, right? That's what a VA is for.
Right.
And then,
and my brain would have gone,
these days, my team, I'm just like, can you just go and do that? Like, can you just not bother me with that anymore?
Right.
So, you should, there's a lot of things that you want to do that you're not doing as a business owner because you don't have the people or even the brain capacity, the space to actually think about it, so.
Well, and we can't keep up with the technology.
No.
And you mentioned that before, that things are changing so quickly that, we have the best of intentions, but we're supposed to be doing whatever it is that our business is doing. And so to have to stop and think, chatbot? What's a chatbot? Or, wait a minute, maybe I should be doing invoicing different or something like that. We just don't have the time to be doing that.
We don't have the time to be doing anything, only running the business. And I think too many people, I was thinking as you were talking, too many people in business, and this is worldwide, the majority of people, I have no numbers or stats or anything on this. I'm sort of thinking, I want to say like 95% of businesses, but they are still stuck in the technician land, which is, I'm a naturopath, I'm a dentist, I'm an accountant, whatever it is that you do. People are stuck in the mindset that running a business requires them to do the technician piece. But unfortunately, there's all these other roles that you have to play when you start to run your own business. Right. You are the technician, you are the salesperson, you are the business operator, and you are the business
hats are just getting
all the hats, right? So you have to start thinking about, well, if I'm really going to run a business and not a glorified job, because let's be honest, most people are only really making what they could probably make by working for someone else with a lot less stress. You have to start thinking about which hats are you going to strategically wear and which ones are you going to let go of. And that involves delegation regardless of whether we're talking about VAs or anything. I mean, this is like, you've just got to learn this skill. But the best place to start is to get rid of admin and get a cheap VA, like, let's be honest, they're cheaper, and start to learn the delegation game in the lower end before you go and take on the big end of town and hire the big shot, So I just think it's a good, and look, going offshore, obviously for me, it's a complete no-brainer because it's so much cheaper than what you can get at home. But it comes with complexity because then you're in a virtual world then, so you've got to figure out like Zoom calls, like what we're on, and you've got to make an effort and all of these things. And just for those listening, what I mean by offshore, let's be honest, is places like Asia, the Philippines, well, we're in the Philippines, but there's many other countries. You can go to Eastern Europe. There's lots of places you can go to get that offshore team.
Well, and obviously it depends on what you're doing. If you're needing someone who is actually going to communicate like via phone with your customers, then that's a little bit different. But it still might work. I mean, if you give somebody the proper training and proper scripts, sure. I mean, hello, there's a reason why the big companies do it.
Well, do you know, right? I'll tell you a story about a small business here in Sydney that my husband runs. My husband runs a tennis coaching business in a suburb in Sydney.
Okay.
Now, tennis coaching is fairly local, right? It's physical.
Right.
People come and we do tennis, right? He does the tennis coaching. Everything else, including speaking to the clients, answering the phone, running the invoicing, the social media, is all done by Mervyn, who lives in the Philippines. And even the clients know. And he calls them, he answers the phone, and it all happens in the Philippines. And so, I would challenge anyone to think, I mean, the people we hire, their English is perfect, right? So there's no issue around that. They have pretty some of them even have US accents, to be honest. But yeah, so it's really expanding your mind to go, that's possible,
Right. Well, and we could hire somebody in the U.S. that we couldn't understand. I was talking with somebody who was, from Boston, and I'm like, what the heck are they saying?
Well, in Ireland, where I'm from, you can go 20 minutes down the road and you don't know what somebody's saying.
Well, and
totally
here in the South, we get people who have very heavy accents. And and we're just not quite sure what's going on. So it comes back to that proper training, and making sure that it's a good fit.
Absolutely, yeah. Training and onboarding is everything.
Right.
It's how you onboard them. You made a comment earlier that you treat your producer like she looks and feels like an employee, even though she's not, and she's with you only 3 hours a week. Most people, when they hire VAs or freelancers or, virtual anything, they very much accidentally treat them like that. And they don't bring them into the business. They don't bring them into the vision and make them feel like they're part of it. And then you get a different result.
Right.
That's the truth, right? Because the person doesn't feel, I mean, it's like dating, right? You're sort of going for coffee and stuff, but you're not really committing.
Talking about your long-term goals.
Yeah, there's no sort of movement forward or anything. And it's the same thing. People need to feel like they belong. And those are the people they work the best for.
Yeah. Well, and just like with a regular employee, you want this to be long-term. If you're having to churn through VAs because things just aren't working out, that's a heck of a lot of work. And so you do want to get somebody that ends up being a long-term person that you're working with.
Well, the funny thing about that
project. Let me put it that way.
Well, I think the problem actually is that a lot of business owners don't want to. They are too afraid to commit to an employee type of situation.
Right.
Therefore, they want the ability to cut and run when things might go south, and then that energy is felt by the other person. So of course they're going to hedge their bets and they're going to have 10 of you. And then the one that gives them more attention is going to get the better work. So it's kind of, it's a tricky one. You've got to it's all human relationships at the end of the day. Yeah.
Right. And I want to come back to, the fact that you mentioned that you train the onboarding, the client too, as to what to expect and what to ask. And so let's talk a little bit more about that, because I think to me, that's just fascinating. And I love that because it's a two-way street. And for someone who, is saying, oh my gosh, I want to hire a VA, now what? I think that the training that you provide is very interesting.
Yeah, and look, we don't make it complicated. Right. We do go deeper later.
We're busy people.
Yeah, so we give you, it's a pretty simple, it's quick to do. The people who do it get the fastest results. It's very simple. It's teaching people where to start. Like, so how do I create my task list?
Okay.
How do I just start at the beginning and create like or how do I, because the biggest problem people do, right? I'm sure you've fallen into this. We all have. You get a VA And then every day you wake up and go, what am I going to give the VA to do today?
I know. Oh my gosh,
a whole other
I'm
job.
What are they supposed to be doing?
I know. And you're like, okay, do this for me. And it's all like fluff. And then you get rid of them. Just
Busy work.
Causing you so much anxiety every day that you can't cope. So we teach people how to not do that. We're like, don't do that, because you want to get the recurring tasks in your business, the operational day-to-day flowing things. And you want to map those out into daily, weekly, monthly tasks so that you have a kind of a recurring system that initially a VA can take over, so that if you are tied up for a few days, they're like, well, I just have to get on with my task. I mean, I know what I'm doing. And you've given them a structure, right? And then projects are different. You can come in on projects and stuff later, but it's that sort of shift of, like, people literally say to us, they go, you've just taken such a weight off my shoulders, because I was waking up every day going, I have to create another Loom video. I don't know what to give them to do. Like, the last thing you want to do is that, right? You want to give them a job.
You don't want busy work either.
No, and you don't want to have to, you don't want another task on your list every day called, what will I give my VA to do today? Right?
Well, you're supposed to be getting tasks. That's
yeah, like, no, you don't want to do that. So that's kind of a more of what we do. Is it felt like, for me, it sounded so basic. I was almost embarrassed to launch it as a training program, until clients were like, wow, you know what, that was a game changer for me, even without getting a so that's what the feedback has been. You know, it's very simple. How to use LastPass, how to secure your business to work online, how to use project management tools, things like that, you know, and what not to do, you know.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I went wrong when I hired VAs before. You know, it really was the, oh my gosh, what am I going to give them to do? Or did I give them enough to do? You know,
or what are they doing all day? Because the other one is you're busy all day. And on the day you're really busy, you get 3 days where you're busy in a row, and you go, I don't even know, did they work? Like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
What are they doing? Yeah, that's a disaster. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we try to, look, I have an entire podcast about this, because in the early days, I just saw so many questions. So I thought, how can I deliver this? So I launched a podcast that literally is very tactical. Things like, how often should I speak to my VA? We did a whole show on it.
Right.
Like, just to kind of clarify.
Am I supposed to talk to them every day? Is once a week enough? You know.
Yeah. How do you know what to do with that? Like, how do I get my VAs to meet my expectations or even communicate them effectively? So it's a very tactical show. And it's because these are all the easy, they're all the kind of simple questions that people feel stupid asking. They're almost too afraid, or they don't even know to ask. Yeah. But we see people getting tripped up with that. Yeah.
And especially because you hear people, well, I have a VA, I have a VA, I have a, and so you're thinking, well, if everybody has a VA, maybe I need one too, but now what? You know, and so it's, I mean, I
well,
could
then,
go much further if I had educated myself to start with.
And I think as well, then what happens when people fail with it is, again, they look around and everyone else is apparently getting success. So the biggest thing that happens then is they run back to the theory of, well, it just doesn't work for my kind of business, because they're too embarrassed to admit that they don't know why it failed. And it fails a lot, right? So don't be embarrassed at all. You know, it's very common, very common.
Well, and if it doesn't work out, you know, we need to figure out why. You know, did I not give enough direction? Did I micromanage? I mean, you know, all of those various things.
Well, look, you know, at the end of the show, I'm going to give you guys a link for your listeners. And one of the goodies on that link, you don't even need to sign up for it. It's just a download.
Cool.
It's basically the 5 reasons people fail with VAs and how to fix it. So it's a little ebook, and it just lays it all out for you there. Right? You know, so those are the 5 things not to do.
I love it. I love it. Well, you know, one of the things that and we probably should have talked about this at the start of the program. One of the things that I'm guessing a lot of people think is, what could a VA do? You know, what could I be having someone do?
Yes. So there's obviously different types of VAs, different levels of VAs. There's a wealth of things the VAs can do for you. We tend to specialize at the Virtual Hub in more digital marketing implementation. Okay. Now, I stress the word implementation because people hear the word digital marketing and immediately think someone's going to come in and drive leads and come up with their funnel strategy and all this sort of
Right.
thing.
Mhm.
So no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to do all the doing that
Mhm.
the strategist or you or your
Mhm.
plans come up with.
Mhm.
But we break it down into three main sections.
Mhm.
So our level 1 VAs are more general admin. And what I mean by that is, email management, calendar management, organizing your Dropbox, even running your podcast, not the technical end of it, but like, managing the guests and that
Mhm.
sort of more admin sort of stuff.
Mhm.
They can do a little bit of, invoicing, a
Mhm.
bit of zero, but they're not bookkeepers.
Okay.
People get very confused with this. Like there is a line between
Right.
a VA and a
Mhm.
bookkeeper.
Mhm.
Level 2 VAs, this is the most common one that we see,
Mhm.
is social media content calendars.
Okay.
Creating, let's say your podcast. Let's take this podcast for a second.
Mhm.
Classic VA work is you record the podcast,
Mhm.
put it in Dropbox, and then there's like 80% of the job happens after you've recorded the podcast.
Mhm.
It has to be edited.
Right.
You got to top and tail it, put it up on your website, get it
Mhm.
up on iTunes. Then you've got to get it transcribed. And then if you really want to go hell for leather, you should, you could create it into a SlideShare and stick it up on YouTube, and you
Mhm.
could do different stuff for LinkedIn, and then you can turn it into an infographic with the top 5 points that were made. You can turn it into 10 social media images and spread it all across social media.
Right.
And before
that's
you know
like
it, you've got
20
2
hours
week
worth of
work.
work. Mhm.
Exactly, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of our VAs, this is what they're doing, and we train them on the process behind that.
Mhm.
So the podcast is a big one that we do, and YouTube channels and stuff like that, because everyone knows there's so much doing involved in that. It's
Right.
just endless.
Mhm.
Blogs, you write the blog, but you got to get the images and
Mhm.
get it SEO properly on your website and get it up on WordPress and same sort of thing.
Mhm.
Then our level 3 VAs is they're more technical. So they're going to do stuff like take platforms like HubSpot, Infusionsoft, Entreport, big CRM platforms.
Mhm.
You might want to have you might have a funnel that you want to build. Like, so let's say it's a lead magnet ebook or something. And then if someone signs up for the ebook, you want to get this series of emails over the next whatever.
Mhm.
If you know what you want and you can draw a map,
Mhm.
even on the back of an envelope, you go, they come in here, they do this, 3
Right.
days later, I want this
Mhm.
email. And you can write the copy.
Mhm.
The VAs will build it for you in the platforms and make
Mhm.
it work. Like, so make it all, tie it together, make
Mhm.
it work, build your campaigns.
Mhm.
So that's just a bit of an idea around what our VAs do. Online there are VAs that do, look, there's a lot of them that will do sort of bookkeeping. I'm nervous about people. mixing
The
VA and
financial
bookkeeping.
aspects are tricky because
Yeah,
of
just be
taxes and all
careful.
sorts of things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So be careful with those things, and be careful as well on websites.
Mhm.
People are like, my VA is amazing. She's going to build my website and then do all this stuff.
Mhm.
They can do that as
Right.
long as it's simple. But if it's any coding or anything like that, or messing with the code,
Right.
I wouldn't do that. I'd get a
Right.
developer to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And as you said, that's a different person that you're
Different
working
thing.
with. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And-
let's say you're talking generalist VAs and then expert VAs that might be more expert level in something like writing.
Mhm.
Don't expect your VA to write blog posts because
Mhm.
they're not writers. That's a
Mhm.
technical, that's an expertise thing that you have to be clear about.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I love this because I think so many people do get caught up in the what could I have them do stage. And as you were talking, I was thinking, well, yeah, I do all of those things to here, but of course they need to be done up here. But I
Yeah.
don't have the knowledge, I don't have the time, I don't have the skill, all of those various things.
It's very
And so-
tedious.
Right. So then it becomes my decision. Am I
Yeah.
going to take things to the next level or am I just going to stay here? And I think that's what so many business people do. They know that they need to get to the next level, but it's, they just don't know how to make that step.
Well, look, here's a very simple framework, right? Every business, regardless of its size, even if it's just one person running a nice lifestyle business, there are departments in every business. You've got marketing, sales, product delivery,
Right.
Finance, whatever. You've got all your little bits.
Mhm.
The easiest thing to do is to map out all the little departments, right? All the bits that you do, and then list down the sort of top 5 kind of tiny, tedious, every day,
Right.
just has to be done to keep the thing moving. Delegate those first.
Yep.
And that's kind of how you stop doing. And even if you never take the business to another level, you get to spend a bit more time with your kids,
Right.
or with your family. Right? So that could be, just bringing it right back to simple terms. You don't have to grow a big scalable empire to do this. You just have to just think, start small, create a process for it, get someone else to do it. Right. And that's basically how you do it. Yeah.
And I love that, that you say, you could stay at the same level, because for some people, that's exactly where they want to be. They don't want to be selling more, doing more for whatever reason, maybe.
And that's totally fine. But I bet you want to work less though.
Right.
It'd be quite nice to stay at this level and not work all the time. Like that'd be quite nice.
Oh yeah.
Take a holiday. Take a little holiday.
Australia.
Go to Australia. So these are the things, like everyone thinks I talk a lot about scaling because I'm interested in that topic. But you're right. Some people, they're very happy with the business they have. They've built it.
Right.
Just take some time back for you. That's how you do it.
Right. I love it. Well, holy schmoly, Barbara, we are almost out of time. So tell people how they find you and connect with you online.
Sure. So if you go to thevirtualhub.com/business power hour, we have a special page for the listeners here. The ebook I mentioned about the 5 biggest mistakes is there. Definitely worth a read. I wrote it, by the way. I did write this one myself from my own experience because I'm the one who sees all the problems. Also on there's a 7-part e-course. Don't freak out. It's just 7 emails. It's not really a massive thing. Again, it was developed by me. I didn't write it, but it was developed by me. And that's more if you want to use VAs to go a bit bigger. So if you want to scale something, but definitely tips in there even if you don't.
Perfect.
And then the final thing on that page, you can book a free strategy call with one of our outsourcing strategy consultants. We have one who covers the US and we've got one who covers Australia, Asia. So we do 24-hour that.
Perfect.
And they will ascertain whether we're the right fit for you or if you're ready. But typically, we'd like you to have a look at the ebook first before you book that call, just to make sure you'll know if you're ready. And if we sound like something that that you're ready for and you really want, then the guys can talk you through how we operate. And if you're ready for us and if we're a fit for you. Yeah.
Right. And I'm guessing that many of our listeners and our viewers really could benefit from having a VA. Even if it is just taking some of those tedious little tasks off their plate, whether it's to give them more time for networking, more time for sales, more time for having fun with their family. There are so many things that a VA can be doing to make our lives run better, both personally and professionally.
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking my language, but as you can tell from speaking to me, I'm not into the big, I think it's a no-brainer for any business. But you have to be ready for it.
Right.
And I think, once you listen, maybe listen back to this podcast a few times and you'll know how to be ready.
Right.
And then it's so worthwhile. The dividends it pays you in the end are very worthwhile if you do it right.
Right.
If you do it right.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and of course, we're talking about VAs that are doing a couple hours a week to a whole bunch of hours a week.
Yes.
It obviously just depends on what you're having them do.
Yeah. Now, just to clarify, I know we're finished. We at the Virtual Hub, we specialize in dedicated staff. So we have a minimum of 20 hours a week, which is more like a part-time employee type thing. But, there are, lots of them online. You can do less. You can, if someone's ready for that level, then we're definitely a good fit. Yeah.
Well, and as you said, you've got great information for people to even figure out, are they ready to take that step? Or, I did it wrong to start with, and all of these various things. Because, we, as I said, we have had experiences where we hired a VA and it didn't work out. And so it doesn't mean that it was not what you should be doing. It just means it didn't work out then.
Exactly. And you can listen, you can get my podcast actually, if you want to hear more from me. The podcast is The Virtual Success Show. It's on iTunes and it's also on our website under our content. So you'll find it at the same. When you head over to that link, you'll see it there as well.
I love it. I love it. Well, Barbara, this has really been great. Is there anything, any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Yeah, look, I would just encourage everyone. The first step is a mindset shift usually. And it's about expanding your mind that everything you feel is fine. The lack of trust, the issues about security, they're all real. And there are ways of dealing with all of those things. And when you do, and you expand your mind, listen to some of our podcasts, read some of our content, and then take the jump. Because honestly, if you do it right, it will pay you the best dividends in the end from every angle, like just even freedom, like time freedom.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I love it. I love it. Well, I have been talking with Barbara Turley from the Virtual Hub. So it's at the www.thevirtualhub.com. I am Deb Creer. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer. Join us next time for more real-life stories and techniques to power up your business.
You've been listening to C-Suite Radio. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.